Oi. Okay, here we go now for dialogue 2 at the hotel. And once again, I'm not ready for this. I'm not sure what's coming. Okay, now I know what's coming. This dialogue is basically calling reception and asking for something. In this case, or in this example, what I'm using is how to book an early morning call. So, you would call reception, and usually it's dial 0. And when they answer, they say, "Good evening, this is reception, how may I help you?" And you could say, "Could I book an early morning call?" "Yes, sir. What time would you like your call?" 6:30 would be fine. "Certainly, sir. Would you like me to book you a table for dinner this evening?" And this is always a possibility. "Yes, please. Could I have a table at 7:30, please?" "Certainly, sir." And then, "Have a nice stay." Okay, this situation could happen when you're checking in. For example, "Could I book an early morning call?" "Yes, sir. What time would you like your call?" 6:30 would be fine. "Certainly, sir. Would you like me to book you a table for dinner this evening?" "Yes, please. Could I have a table at 7:30, please?" "Certainly, sir. Have a nice stay." Now, "Could I book you a table for dinner this evening?" You say, "Yes, please. Could I have a table at 7:30, please?" You may get asked the question, for how many people? If you're dining alone, then of course you just say, just one for one. If you have a guest joining you, then 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So be aware that you may get asked the question, for how many? And in that case, you would need to tell them how many people. Okay, let's move on to our next segment. Okay, let's moving on with our vocabulary section now. This is just a few more hotel vocabulary sections. We have room service. What time is breakfast served? What time does the restaurant close? And also I decided to add in porter and concierge. So let's have a look at these in turn. First of all, porter or concierge. Again, this is another British American English. British American English would be, in British English you have porter. In American English, we have concierge. Both have the same purpose. The concierge usually would help you book taxis, book tickets, and give you some ideas on places to go. So a porter does pretty much the same thing in a European hotel. Next, we have room service. Room service, I think most people know. Room service would be tea, coffee, or lunch, or breakfast, or dinner. You may have, or an evening meal sent to your room. Room service is food or drinks that you may want to have at maybe later in the evening. What time is breakfast served? What time is breakfast served? Most hotels are serving from maybe 6:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. And on weekends, it might be 7 a.m. until 10 or 11 a.m. So what time is breakfast served? Then you can ask that question just to find out how early or how late you can have breakfast. And finally, what time does the restaurant close? Again, some hotel restaurants close at 9 o'clock. So you need to be ready for that then. Not always late opening. So what time does the restaurant close? So there you go. So there you go. That's the vocabulary for this week. That was the second dialogue of this week. Coming up soon, we will have our practice dialogues. But for now, let's take a break. Okay, so there we had dialogue 2, how to book an early morning call. Coming up next, we have the podcast of the week, followed by our first practice session of the week. And if you're new to this show, then the practice session is all about practicing as it was dialogue 1, which is checking into the hotel, and I will play the hotel receptionist and you will play the guest. But first, let's get straight into Podcast of the Week. Okay, this week's Podcast of the Week is something a little bit different. Whilst I was searching through the various English language podcasts, I came across this website called www.englishcaster.com. Basically, this website gives you a whole series of different English language podcasts that you can choose from. So, for example, if you wanted to learn business English, then there is a business English podcast. If you wanted to learn ESL English, then you can choose an English ESL podcast. You choose basically the kind of podcast you want. You can choose TOEIC, TOEFL, ESL, business English, and much, 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 much more. So check it out. Podcast of the week for this week, week number 5, is www.englishcaster.com. Okay, that's Podcast of the Week. Coming up now, we have Dialogue Practice. Okay, so this week's practice is very much like we did in episode 3, because simply you will not be the receptionist, you are going to be the customer. So I will play the customer, you can play the receptionist. So let's just get the screen on. Here we go. Good morning, sir. Good morning. I have a reservation in the name of Mr. Smith. Just a moment, Mr. Smith. Here we are. You have a single non-smoking room booked for 2 nights. Yes, that's right. May I take an imprint of your credit card? Okay, so you're going to be black. I'm going to be orange. Let's get started. Good morning, sir. Just a moment, Mr. Smith. Here we are. You have a single non-smoking room booked for 2 nights. May I take an imprint of your credit card? Okay,